evening, Avram.
Hey,
How are you?
all right.
That's good.
Uh,
Better than not.
my system here is all in pieces, so I gotta fix some things later. And now I can see that I'm also dark because one of the things that normally lights me up isn't here, which is my two monitors up here I took down because I have to rearrange it.
Yep.
Ugh. So now you just have my shadowy face. Ugh.
Tis okay, friend.
That looks really bad. I need another light. All right. Well, I have to deal with it a little later. I guess. Uh, well, hold on a second. We could talk about.
I did not rinse the soap out of this cup well enough. Whew.
Let's see. Oh man, it's like my head is a reflector. 1 second. Oh, this is too bad. Hold on. This is too bad to live with. I'll be right back.
Okay. Uh, Welcome to the show, everybody, if you're watching live. This is a part of the show that people who are with us live get to see that nobody else does. Obviously, we will be starting soon. Hope everybody got an opportunity to watch the live stream on Friday with our CES preview content. If you didn't, you can head over to our YouTube channel and check that out. Head over to PLUGHITZ Live.
Okay.
And you'll be able to check that content out.
All right, there we go. Sorry. Now, at least, though my head is shadowy, at least my head is not a reflector. I need some type of lighting in here. All right. I'm also missing a bulb. My office needs work. Everything needs work. Everything is a mess. I had such problems this weekend trying to fix the situation here. So, like, the bars where these normally are, because I was putting in two new monitors, and unfortunately, I had some problems. So I didn't get to put the top two in, and then I'm getting a different one for one of the top spots. So it's a long story, but maybe that should be our story, because I wanted to talk a little bit about story I'm working on right now, which is why you might want to buy a used monitor.
Okay.
I've done some research on this. I've actually done it, and I have a article that's probably going up tomorrow about the pros and cons of buying a used monitor. Also, although I don't think this would be, I could demonstrate this very well. I have this thing here.
Developer.
No, it's a data color spider.
Oh, is that what it says?
It's a color. Yeah, it's a color calibrator.
Yeah.
So I messed with this, and I've learned quite a bit about that over the last week too.
Okay.
However, one of the things that I learned is just because you can calibrate something doesn't mean that you should. So there's always that.
I get that.
Yeah. So anyway, so I looked at all the other stuff.
Excellent.
I think it's good to go.
All right. Just got to pull up the Restream dashboard. Interesting. Apparently the settings on the encoder have changed. I wonder why. Okay. Anyway, all right. Then I'm good if you are.
Yeah.
Okay, gonna come over here. All right. Make sure I got everything in place. Yep. Okay. Here we go. Oh no, I have to hit record. See everybody? I want to see it work. There we go. All right, here we go. This week, Meta's team is shrinking. Valve's lineup could be growing. Elon Musk might be leaving. And AI art is here. It's Monday, December 19th, 2022, and this is episode 639 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, or YouTube, where you can join the community and get ad-free versions of F5 Live and Piltch Point, or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday nights normally, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you can't join us live, that's okay. PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you'll find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Speaking of content that you get if you join us over on YouTube as a member, once CES gets started, you'll get some special behind-the-scenes stuff that you won't get on the public show. Plus, as the interviews get edited, they are made available to our YouTube members. They're not pretty. It's the video. There's no nice titles or descriptions or anything. You just got to do it. But yeah, all that's made available as they're edited. Anyway, that's in a couple of weeks. But tonight, Avram, it's good to be back.
Yes, it's great to be back.
How did your first night of Hanukkah go?
It was all right. It was okay. We went to my mom's. Nothing too exciting. Had a nice dinner. Gave the kids some gifts. Lit some candles. It was all good. It was all good. Now we have a few more nights, but my son got kind of sick today, so we're not getting to really have a fun day or anything about it.
Sure.
But hey, there's another 6 days, so get you that, and we can watch all the new Dave Grohl videos that come out for Hanukkah. Comes out every night with a different song. So anyway,
we went and did something a little different. We went and saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra last night.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's always a fun show. And the fact that it all got started here, they always put on a slightly bigger show for us here in Tampa. So there was fire and multiple stage setups. It was intense. And from a production standpoint, Alante and I had an absolute blast watching, because they had these 6 big rings on the stage that all moved and they were all lit, and one of them went out during the show, and we're like, I wonder if they're going to even it out. I wonder if they're going to go into the DMX controller and turn off the other one so that it was symmetrical. And they did. They went in and made it so it was symmetrical again. It was fun to watch.
That is really cool. We'll talk about this more during my segment, but it's in a monitor palooza over here in my house. I have taken apart like my 4 monitor setup and upgraded some pieces of it, and then I got so into some of it that I ordered another monitor. Now I'm not really sure what I'm going to do because I'm actually have an extra 4K monitor, and I don't have a place to put a 5th monitor. But we'll get into that later. I also have. That's why my face isn't so well lit. I didn't realize how much I depend on having a monitor over there to light my face. So my top level monitors are still. I should show the audience.
They're
still,
MIA.
Missing because I had to move. Those were my bottom monitors, and then that's one of the 2 that have to be put back up. But on the other hand, I have another one coming in the mail, and it's a long story. But anyway, I'm also looking for a solution to keep the monitor arms here from sagging and falling. So if anybody has any ideas of like somebody online suggested I get a PVC pipe or something and cut it. I'm looking for some way to like put some type of stand in the stand to hold the arm, to keep the arms from flopping over.
Is it the cantilever on the actual attached to the actual monitor that's sagging?
Yeah, well, the arm part, it sags a little bit, and then I had a scare the other day because these, like, it's all a big, like, one big pipe here, right?
Mm-hmm.
One big, and these arms here, if they're screwed to hold steady, that like centerpiece, and I like pushed on one and the whole thing fell down.
Oh.
And I wouldn't want it, like the bottom one fell down with monitors on it. Fortunately, it didn't have far to fall, but I really worry about it falling again or the top one falling.
Sure.
So particularly because I'd like to be able to pull, it can move out like this, but I worry about if it's out, then it's like even more likely to fall because maybe it's like putting more, I don't know, about weight or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out how I might, like, I don't know, do something to kind of add extra support to the arms, whether 3D print something or take a PVC pipe, cut it to the right size, and I don't know, put some kind of groove in it to hold the arm up. I haven't really seen anybody do anything like that, but
I had trouble with one of my 2 trees with the bottom set of arms, specifically because of the weird mount. Because HP made my monitors not with a VESA mount, but they had designed this thing that clipped in where the stand goes and had a VESA mount here, and it sat off. But they never made it publicly available, but somebody's, I guess, got a hold of it and made them. And so I ended up with a bunch of those. And for some reason, those would bow forward over time. And I ended up, because the height was just right, I ended up using lead acid batteries out of like dead batteries out of a battery backup.
I mean, I could probably put a pile
height.
I mean, I could probably put a pile of books or something if I really tried, but it just seems like a really big mess. Like if I could just put some type of a stand at the end of it to sort of hold it, then that would be good. Maybe that defeats the purpose of having a monitor arm because you shouldn't, but it still would be less than having a less crud on my desk than just putting a whole bunch of stands.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll figure something out, but I want to try to find a way to keep this from falling. And Anyway,
Makes sense.
And then I also discovered another problem with a couple of my monitors is that they're all VESA mounted, but some of them have the VESA mount on the bottom of the back, and some of it have in the middle of the back. So these like bigger monitors that I have, these 28 inches, I thought I could get them to line up with the 27s because they're not that much different in size, but because the VESA mount is low on it, it sits high, right?
Yeah.
So whereas the other ones are where it kind of should be, the VESA mount's in the middle of the back,
in the center,
middle of the back. So I don't know. This is kind of messing me up. I don't know. Long story, but
definitely things to think about.
But listen, folks, you too should have 4 monitors or more. Maybe you if you have more office space than I do, get a 6, get a hex mount. Then you won't have to decide which monitor to kick out of your array like I have to. Anyway.
I've got 4 aimed at me where I'm sitting right now and 6 out in mission control, so I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I just had one I really liked the color on, and I was like, oh, and I get another one like that instead of these dull ones.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Makes sense. Well, we'll talk about that more in the Piltch point, I think.
Yeah.
Before we get started, just want to remind people, we are, way too close to CES getting started. Our TPN broadcast will start on Thursday, January 5th, probably at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It will go 10 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 2, I think. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Got a lot of content coming. Our schedule is filling quick. Friday the 6th is National Technology Day. And we will be teaming up once again with our good friends over at the National Day calendar to celebrate National Technology Day. They have a show from the floor that they'll be doing, and we'll be simulcasting. Lots of fun stuff coming up, so definitely check that out. You'll be able to do that at PLUGHITZlive.com/join us or at techpodcasts.com/CES 2023. And again, if you're a member on YouTube, you will get interviews once they're edited, not once they're published. So in some cases, you can be weeks ahead of the publish. So definitely go check that out. For those of you who might be joining us on Facebook or Twitter, we appreciate you joining us for the live show. However, it ends here for you. If you want to continue, join us over on Twitch or on YouTube. You can go to f5live.tv/join us and chat with us over there. That's the best way for us to join along with you. And so that's the best place for you. With that, we will see you over there, hopefully, and we will get down to some news right now. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. All right, we have talked about our various feelings about VR, and in particular, Facebook/Meta's implementation of VR over the years. Avram has long said that the HTC Vive is more his favorite device than, say, the Meta Quest, which I agree with. I have used many Meta Quests, and I don't quite enjoy them as much. I don't know if he has updated that recommendation since then.
I mean, I think it's good that you have, I think, as Carmack said, have something that works really well, detached from a computer.
Mm-hmm.
It so happens that my son has a Quest 2, and And so that's the only VR headset I have in the house, and it's much easier to use than an HTC Vive. You don't have to set up a station or anything
Yeah.
like that. So, it's
They've got their ups and
convenient,
downs.
it works, it's convenient and it works. I don't get to use it very much. He uses it a lot, but so I actually think, if I were to recommend VR for somebody today, the one that makes the most sense is still the Quest 2.
Yeah.
It's relatively affordable. It works independent of a PC or with a PC, uh, or wirelessly. So it gives you lots of options, and it seems to be the best supported in terms of software. So,
Yeah.
you know, it. I mean, I'd like to see somebody make something better, or Meta make something better, but and it's been out for what, like 2-3 years now. It's not exactly a brand new product.
Yeah, it's been out for a
So
while.
I think we could certainly use something new, but it's for what's out there. It's probably the best mainstream VR solution.
Yeah, for sure. We've got one possibly in a box right in front of me, um, or out in mission control. I have never been a huge VR person. I'm much more an AR person. There's a HoloLens just outside of my reach to my left. But obviously, VR has a lot of interesting possibilities. It has had its share of issues in adoption, but overall, VR has certainly done better in the last couple of years, partially because of the Quest 2 and its independent nature. But it has still struggled. Before the company changed its name, everybody kind of wondered, what is Facebook's plan with VR now that they've purchased Oculus in 14, and it kind of bounced around a little bit. It didn't seem like they quite had a grip on what their plans were. Then they rebranded everything. Everything became Meta. Facebook became Meta. Oculus became Meta. Everything was Meta, and the belief was maybe they found their focus. Well, this week, the now former chief technology officer for Oculus slash MetaQuest has left, John Carmack. And on his way out, he basically said that he didn't have it in him to continue trying to fight to put a direction on top of Facebook slash Meta's kind of chaos. Now, their corporate chaos is something that is well known inside the engineering world. Many senior engineers, software engineers, have been offered jobs at Facebook or Meta, depending on the time period, including people here in this circle. They're usually turned down because we all know that no part of the company has a direction. They're an engineering-led company, which has its benefits, but it does mean that they don't necessarily have a business plan or a business need or even a customer need for things that they create, and it sends them off in these weird places. Workplace, for example, which I don't think even exists anymore. They go off in these weird directions because they think it's cool, and then nobody cares. And then they have things that they create that people do want. Oculus for Business, for example, that they completely abandon. I worked on a project on Oculus for Business in the last 6 months, and completely abandoned. The best features that the company had put on top of the VR, and they had languished. They no longer support the modern hardware. And so Carmack, who, by the way, co-founder of id Software, lead developer on kind of everything that mattered in the 90s. Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, Quake, tons of high-profile 90s games. Carmack was like, I'm out. I'm done with VR. In fact, I'm gonna go work on AI. It's a pretty big move, uh, as far as I'm concerned. You know, first of all, saying these things publicly. We have a link to his Facebook post, but also saying, I'm done. I'm out. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, I as someone who's worked in the corporate world, obviously not at Meta and not in programming and not in VR, so take it for what it is worth. But I have worked at a couple of different jobs and fairly large corporations, or large compared to some, and there's always some level of corporate BS at every job, and there are always some people who have less tolerance for the BS.
Sure.
There are some people who love the BS and are part of the BS. There are some people who internalize the BS and they're like, "Wow, man, I love whatever this BS is." And then there are some people who
Oh, I
who,
saw
who
faces in my head of those people from my past. I'm sorry. Continue.
you know, I mean, that's one great way to succeed in a lot of corporations. Like, listen, whatever today's mantra is, I'm with it, whether I'll internalize it no matter what. Um, but then there's always people, especially the most creative people, who are like, hey, I don't have the patience. I don't have patience for corporate politics. I don't have patience for this stuff. I don't have patience for things that I disagree with. I'm just gonna like take my ball and go home. Now, to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, this guy's been doing this a while. He didn't just start. Um, but in my experience, the more cooks you have, the more politics you have, the more BS you have, the less gets done.
Yeah.
And you look at like smaller and smaller companies, and like they're able to do a lot more because they don't have so many layers of decision making to go through to make a choice.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously,
For him though,
what
in this case, he was literally at the top, like one step from the top of the pyramid, and he still couldn't get things done.
right? So that is a problem, because what they should do, it's what it says is that this is a very top down organization, that even he can't do what he wants. I
In
mean, we
some
see this in
cases,
all.
and in some
Yeah,
cases, part of Meta's problem is this whole engineering led culture where a lot of what happens is bottom up driven. Things are controlled by too many of the engineering employees, not the engineering managers, not the senior engineers, just the day to day. Hey, today I want to work on this. Is there a need for it? Don't worry about that. And that's where a lot of the chaos at that company has always come from. Fortunately, they did not implement that same chaos engine on top of Instagram, which is the reason why Instagram continues to operate fairly smoothly. And, release things that make sense. Occasionally they put out a UI update that annoys everybody, but they pulled that one back. But on the Facebook side, there's features that come and go, sometimes day to day, because somebody wanted to do a thing.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
Uh, I mean, I think that, like, obviously it's a big indictment of their corporate culture there, that they can't get more done. Um, Obviously, you know, I mean, the best I mean, I guess part of the situation there too is that maybe they're not letting that division run as independently as they should, or maybe it is, like you said, just people from the bottom up having too much say. Uh, I mean, the guy was there a long time. He couldn't crack the culture. I guess see this as a warning, uh, because Carmack is someone who should be listened to. Like,
Yes.
he knows what he's doing. So, um, and and even if he didn't know what he was doing in terms of VR, like, he's supposed to be the manager there, and so we don't really know what his vision was. Um, But
True.
we see this all the time. I mean, think about all the directors who have had their, vision messed with by movie executives. You thought that this could have been a great movie if only such and such person didn't mess with it,
Yeah.
or so we hear, right?
Right.
So
The Snyder
it,
stuff is a good example of that.
except then we learned,
Well, that's a whole different
and
issue.
it wasn't. But yes, there's always somebody to muck with it, and there's probably a lot of great stuff that was kind of left on the cutting room floor or whatever. So, I mean, I'd love to know what he thinks they should be building and what they're actually building. I mean, I assume they're working on a next generation product. I mean, they can't live with this forever, right? I mean,
One would hope.
I
There's the
mean,
Oculus Pro, right? Um,
but that's not a replacement for this. It's
no,
too
right.
it's
So,
too expensive, and
but
yeah,
it does indicate that the division is doing something. We just don't
yeah,
know. And again, that could be one of those things, right? Where they were working on this other thing because somebody wanted to, and not necessarily because there was a business need for it, which brings us back to the cultural issue over inside of Facebook/Meta.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to see. I'd like to see them do something to unite AR and VR in a single device,
Mm-hmm.
um, to really give you like a really good, real mixed reality
Yeah.
experience. Um, we still haven't seen a great like AR consumer device. We've seen AR, some really expensive AR for business things like HoloLens, but we haven't seen like a yeah, we haven't seen like a really great example of. I mean, like AR gaming is not the best experience, but AR can be good for other things.
Sure.
So like
Although
if
I'll
you
tell
could
you,
mix.
there there was an unofficial port of Pokemon Go for the HoloLens. It no longer works. Um, Niantic was working on it at one point, and it leaked out. So it was, kind of an unofficial port, or at least an unofficial release. I got to use it. That was wild.
That's cool. I mean, most AR things that we use are like, okay, this is a cute thing on the phone
Yeah,
or whatever, like
yeah,
Pokemon Go.
sure.
But I remember, I don't know if we ever talked about this on the show, but there was that thing that Lenovo came out with a few years ago where you do a lightsaber duel with Kylo Ren or a
Yep.
stormtrooper or something, and that was AR.
Uh huh.
And
That
like
was that on the Windows MR platform?
it was its own thing, I
Was
think.
it?
I
Okay.
don't think you could use it. It was a proprietary, you could only do that with it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it had a base station that you would put down. Then you'd have like a little
Yep.
controller that looked like a lightsaber that you could use. And then if you had a second, and they were like 250 bucks each. And then if you bought a second one, then you and a friend could lightsaber duel. But then if you didn't, then you just be lightsaber dueling like, you know, Kylo, a very translucent like Kylo Ren. And the thing is, it wasn't even smart enough to maintain the distance. So like to change the distance. So no matter, you could walk across the room and Kylo Ren would still be 2 feet in front of you, whether you went forward or back. It
I
was always
remember this.
wherever like it. And like if you think about it, like it was cute. It's cute for like a minute that like you're fighting monsters or enemies or whatever in your living room. And then after a while, you're like, this isn't really what I want from my gaming experience. Like, I want
Yeah.
to be in a more immersive world than in my living room or whatever. Like, I, I want to be transported to another world. I don't want when I'm gaming. I don't want it to be here in my desk in my living room. Like, Pokemon Go is cute like that, whatever, because you're collecting things, but I don't think a lot of people want to play a game where it's just a translucent thing on top of your messy desk and the
Yeah.
living room, right?
The best,
It's not.
the
Yeah,
absolute best AR game I have played is called Fragments. Um, it is. I think we may have even. It may not have been on this show. It might have been on something else. But I've talked about it on air, and Lante and I keep talking about wanting to do a stream of it because we don't think that anybody ever has. Um, we've played it for hours at this point, and we haven't finished our first time through the story. And it's
yeah.
so good. There's there's this woman that sits on my TV stand in front of the TV and talks to us because there was a flat surface there, and it has figured out that on my stairs there's like a nice big flat wall, and so it puts, when a control panel is needed, it puts it there. It's solid, but it's the only one that I feel like has that kind of depth that I have personally interacted with, which is a shame, right? Because if you look at, even for the HoloLens, which there's more of those out there than Magic Leaps, because there was that leak that suggested they may have sold about 12 of the first generation ones. So when you look at like the games that are the highest rated, you've got Fragment and then Robo Raid, the one that Microsoft showed off at their presentation when they announced the HoloLens like 180 years ago. That one's number 2, and it's basically not changed at all, and it's the same game over and over and over and over again, and that's the number 2. Not great. It would be, but that's because there's not many of them out there. Even the HoloLenses, there's not a lot in consumer hands. They're mostly in business hands because they were $3,500 a piece.
yeah.
So yeah, it would be great to see some AR mixed stuff. The Apple headset is supposed to be a proper MR. It's supposed to be AR VR mix. We'll see if that ever comes to market. It's supposed to hit in 2023, but it was also supposed to hit in 2020, I think. So, we'll see. I think what Carmack is saying, and I think I agree with him, is there needs to be more legitimate players in this space. Windows MR was not it. There need to be more players in this space. It can't be essentially just HTC and Oculus. There's got to be more serious players, because that's when a company has to dump the chaos or get left behind. So it'll either it's a put up or shut up kind of a situation if there's more players in the space that are serious contenders. In my experience, Magic Leap's not it. The HoloLens, as much as I love it, not it. There, all the Windows MR stuff, not it. So, somebody has to come along and put up a challenge here, and I don't know. Hopefully, we'll see it at some point. I know this is the wrong topic, but there apparently is a HoloLens version of Lemmings. Just got to put that out there. Moving on. I'm looking in the Microsoft store. Anyway, at the beginning of the show, in the intro, we were talking about the project that Avram has been up to lately and some of the things surrounding it. Let's get into some details on that, Avram.
Sure. So I wanted to talk. Well, I'm doing some monitor work. Why? Well, first of all, I should say that probably the most important and sometimes underrated part of your computer setup is your monitor or monitors. In my case, 4 monitors, because I mean that's what you're interacting with, right? That's what you're looking at all day long. So if you can get a better looking monitor that gives you better picture quality, that's an immediate improvement to your quality of life. If you can increase the number of screens you have, or get bigger screens, or get higher resolution screens, that is immediate improvement to your quality of life. And of course, if you're a gamer, which I'm not much of a PC gamer, um, then getting a higher refresh rate would greatly improve your quality of life as well. But in my case, I'm all about the productivity work, and for a couple of years now, I've had a 4 monitor setup with 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. But the 2 that I had on the top were my 2 bottom monitors were two 28-inch 4K Lenovo monitors. They were the L28U30, uh, also known as the S28U10, same thing, 4K monitors. But my top monitors were monitors that I bought in 2012. They were Dell 24-inch HD monitors, and they were still working fine. But holiday season rolled around, and I said, I want to do better. I want to improve. What can I get this holiday season to kind of improve my tech life? And, I've rebuilt my computer this year. Yeah, I could get a better 3D printer or something, but, that's not something I'm using every single day. Um, what would really change the game for me? Oh, going to changing those 2 old 1080p monitors to 4K. And then I thought about it, and I said, not now. If I'm going to get 2 new monitors, do I want to get 2 that are exactly like the ones that I have, which probably would have been the smart thing, or do I want to try to get ones that are a little bit nicer? The ones I had were like $250 4K monitors. Decent color, decent, sharpness, but wouldn't it be nice to have ones that could do like wide color gamut and really pop? Good for graphics editing, but just also nicer to look at. So I was trying to figure out which 2 monitors I would get to replace my top ones. And would I just move the bottom ones to the top, because the bottom left monitor is like the most important monitor for me, because that's the one I sit directly in front of. Anyway, so I was looking around, and I wanted a monitor that could do like, wide color gamut, like at least 95% of the DCI-P3 gamut, which is like the video color gamut, and maybe something that could do 99% of Adobe RGB, because that is a sign that you have a lot of color volume. So the thing is, it's not expensive to buy a 4K monitor. What is expensive is if you want it to have a lot of color. Then you may be spending $500, $600, $700 per monitor. What I discovered, and here's the nugget for the audience, is you can save a lot of money and get a really good monitor if you're willing to buy a used monitor. Now, this is not universally true. It depends on what type of monitor you're looking for. If you're looking for a mid-range gaming monitor that operates at it's like 2K resolution and 165 hertz, there's no benefit to buying a used one. You can't get a used one cheaper than a new one. But if you want something that is like a, high res professional monitor, or even some really, even some really high res gaming monitors, a high end monitor, you can save a lot of money by finding an older one that may be just as good as what's being made today. One thing that I learned in my journey is how long a monitor can actually last. So, Scott, you and I were talking about this the other day. What is the oldest monitor that you have?
My kind of wall of 27-inch HPs are, I think, 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old.
And do you use them a lot?
All the time.
Right. So, um, my two Dell monitors that I was replacing, like, they are 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I got them in 2012. Maybe it was even 2011. I think it was 2012. They're 10 years old, and nothing went wrong with them. They're perfectly fine. I don't know if you remember when I was a kid, they used to have Carter's pajamas, and they would say if they could just stay little till their Carters wear out. Well, if you could just, if my monitor is like the Carter's pajamas, it won't wear out. So, if they could just stay as the highest resolution until they wear out. But so an LED backlight in an LED backlit monitor, which is the most common type of backlight today, can I have read in various places can last between 80 and 100,000 hours. If you were running it at 8 hours a day, that would be 34 years. Now, that's
Okay.
of course not that is of course not counting other parts in the monitor that could possibly wear out too. But everyone that I talk to, including myself, uh, has stories about a monitor that's lasted 10 plus years, um, which means that, hey, these things last a long time. So buying a used one is not necessarily a problem. Like, if it was used for 3 or 4 years, you can probably still get at least another 10 years out of it, by which point you may be wanting a better monitor. But to be fair, the technology also doesn't change that often. I mean, if you think about it, right? Um, the resolutions that people had on their monitors 10 years ago are still in use today. The connectors that people used on their monitors 10 years ago are still in use today, or you can get an adapter. If your monitor was VGA or DVI, you can easily get an adapter for them. So monitors can last a really long time, and they can be with you through many different computers or upgrades of your desktop. What changes usually in the monitor world is things getting cheaper. Cheaper for higher resolution, cheaper for bigger screen, and now cheaper for high refresh rate. And on the very high end, we are seeing higher refresh rates. But because I think we're finally going to start seeing like 500 hertz refresh rates, where today I think 360 is the top. And for 4K monitors, I think we just saw like a 240 hertz 4K come out. But if you do not need the bleeding edge of refresh rates in gaming, you can save quite a bit of money. So I looked around, and my story was, hey, I want something that has has wide color gamut. I want something that's 4K. I want something that's 27 or 28 inches, because my monitor arm unfortunately can't hold 30 or 32 inches, or else I would get that. Um, so, so I looked around and I had 2 Lenovo monitors. I thought it'd be cool to get another one that kind of had the same aesthetic. And I found that Lenovo has a high color gamut monitor called the P27U20. But the current generation, the P27U20, costs $550. And normally it's $700. That's a lot, particularly if I want to buy 2 monitors. Also, supposedly, there's some users report that the B27U20 has coil whine issues where it makes noises when it's plugged in, which is definitely not cool. So I saw that so I was looking around, and on eBay there was a company that pulls monitors from offices called North Bay, and they were selling a P27U10, the prior generation, which still is 99% Adobe RGB, still is like 98% DCI-P3, and for $200, in supposedly perfect condition. So I said, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to see if it says that if this is eBay says that if these things are not working, you can demand your money back. So I ordered it for $200. A few days later it came, and man, I love this monitor. It's like the best monitor I've ever had. It's so good. The colors really pop. The text is super sharp, and it's easier to read for some reason. I don't know if it's the pixel density is just a little bit better, but it's much easier to read the text on this than on the 28-inch Lenovo's I had already. It's like 1 inch smaller, but it's easier to read the text. Is it that you just by shrinking it 1 inch, you're getting a higher PPI? I don't think so. I think it's just better quality panel. I think it's just a much better panel. So it looked absolutely fantastic. And I started to, look around to see like where else are people, like, is this a common thing that you could save money by buying a used monitor? And indeed it is, as long as you kind of go into it knowing what you're looking for and what is worth getting used. So there's several different places you could buy a used monitor. You could get one from a wide variety of sellers on eBay, including companies that do nothing but this, or nothing but kind of pulling, kind of e-cycling monitors from businesses, which are definitely, if it comes from a business office environment, it's actually probably in better shape than if it came from someone's house, probably. Obviously places like that will, offer you some guarantees. But there's also Amazon Warehouse where you can get stuff, but the prices there are not quite as good as eBay. Lenovo and Dell have outlets where prices can be kind of variable. There's also a website called Back Market, which sells kind of used and refurbished computer goods. And I would feel weird about buying a lot of different components used. Maybe a laptop, maybe I might feel a little bit more hesitant about that thing has been carried around. It has a battery. It's got things that, the keyboard that wears out. And of course, a laptop or something like that, if you get one that's several years old, it's that much more obsolete. It's got a processor that's old now, whatever. But a monitor, I think a monitor is the perfect thing for somebody to buy used because it doesn't have any moving parts. The technology doesn't change that drastically. They last forever. And, it can be with you for a long time to come. So you just need to, obviously, if you're interested in buying a used monitor, well, actually, I think the first question you should ask is, what kind of monitor do I want? And can I save money by buying it used? It seems, obviously, as I said before, that professional grade monitors ones with lots, that are used for editing, for like video and photo editing, for things where you want good color. Those are actually some of the best things to buy used, because a lot of those are pulled from offices. The technology on those doesn't change that radically over the years, unless you're going for something like OLED, which is super expensive. So, for example, another example, LG makes a 5K monitor that's very popular with Mac users. LG's 5K ultrafine monitor. It first came out in 2019, but they still make it today. A new copy of that monitor is $1,200. They're still making it new, but it's $1,200. You can find one that is in good shape for $850. Now, that's still a lot to spend on a used monitor, but if you buy it from a place that is reputable, and of course eBay and a lot of these other places, if you get it and it comes in the mail and it's not as described, it's defective, you can send it right back and get your money back. So you're willing to kind of take the risk of the hassle of having to ship it back. You could save a lot of money. Some places offer you a free, year or 2-year warranty on the monitor that you get, but I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that, because those third-party warranties are, not necessarily coming from the company that made it. If it's a Lenovo monitor, it's not a Lenovo warranty. And frankly, my take on this is, when you get a used monitor, hook it up, use it for a few days, make sure you don't leave it in the box too long, use it for a few days, really kind of burn it in, make sure it works. And then, chances are it's going to keep working, especially if it's used, because if it was defective from the factory, that defect would have already been found. So in my experience, not a lot of monitors just wear out. If it's working and you don't drop it, it's probably going to keep working.
Well, that's obviously that's good information. Sometimes, not always, the plural of anecdote can be data. You and I have both had very good experience with long-term monitor usage, and it's good to hear that, technologically it does work out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I have not seen a lot of good repair data or something on like the lifespan of a monitor aside from the backlight. But the backlight is that part of the monitor that's supposed to wear out, and that's good for 80 to 100,000. So now, could there be something else in your monitor that breaks, like the power supply?
Sure,
possibly. I mean, but on the other hand, who knows whether it would have broken? I don't know. Would have broken on a new system, so on a new one. I mean, I think that for a lot of things, there's a lot of things you buy, there's a limited lifespan. For example, you'd be crazy to buy a used storage device. Like,
sure.
Don't buy a used SSD. Don't buy a used hard drive. Those things are going to wear out. Like, there's a limited number of write cycles on an SSD, although it's pretty high, and you really don't want, and you really could hit that limit in a few years. But I don't know. It just seems like a monitor is, obviously there's always some degree of risk involved, but it seems like you can really mitigate that risk by buying from a reputable vendor, making sure that you test it, and send it back if it doesn't work. You can really save yourself a lot of money by buying a used monitor. That's, as I said before, that doesn't work for every situation. There's certain classes of monitor where buying it used just doesn't make sense. It's like it's no cheaper. So why would you do it? I don't think you should consider buying a used monitor unless you're going to save at least $100 over the cost of an equivalent new monitor. And by equivalent, I mean it may not be necessarily the same model, because it may be the used one you're buying is the last generation or something. But you should, unless you're going to save $100, at least $100, don't do it. But there's a chance to save quite a bit of money. And if you're like me, you're trying to buy, several different monitors, then maybe you can't. Maybe it's a little bit pricey to buy the $700 one when you can get it for $200. So I liked that monitor so much that but I couldn't find another one being sold used at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh yeah, I'll get a new Black Friday. I'll get a new Dell monitor that is similar, a Dell U2720 QM, which is supposed to be fairly wide color gamut and also 27-inch 4K monitor, and that was on sale for $350 brand new. Well, I got it, and I have to say that the brand new Dell, the colors on it just are not nearly as good as the old Lenovo. So much so, I kept the Dell because it has some redeeming features. It has HDR, which is nice to have on one of my monitors. But then I was like, oh man, I'd really like to have another one of these great Lenovo's. And I saw someone else selling one on eBay for $159. And I was like, hey, I'm going to get that and replace one of my other monitors with this. I'm in. Although one of my tips is make sure you look at how much the shipping is, because it was $159, but the shipping wasn't exactly free. So it's going to be more like $240. But even there, to get a really, really good professional class monitor, I think it's worth it. So that's my advice. Consider, if you want to save money and you're looking for a monitor, particularly a professional monitor or high-end gaming. For example, I saw an Asus ROG P32UQ that was $1,000 when it came out in early 2022. Now we're seeing pre-owned ones for $700. So you could definitely save money if you're looking for something that is on the high end.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge discount right there. 30%.
Right. Now
that's a big difference.
It is. Now, obviously you gotta, make sure you buy it from a reputable place and, test it out. But yes, you could save $300 on that. So, because I think it just came out earlier this year and they've already kind of replaced the model with a slightly different model. But, it's still good, right? I mean, like, the changes in monitors are very often very subtle from one generation to another. So, it's not like getting a new process, buying an old processor or something.
Yeah, makes sense. Obviously, I assume you're working on a piece involving all this
probably
information.
Tomorrow. Yes, all the tips I just told you, my whole monitor drama and story will be on Tom's Hardware probably tomorrow.
Fantastic. Well, as always, Avram, I appreciate it. With strike and everything, we're always looking at monitors. It's a big part of our normal, operating. I own more televisions than a normal human being should because of that business at this point. But monitors as well. So, it's good advice. It's something that we'll take into consideration over there. And when I'm ready to fully update the tree out in Mission Control as well. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about after the first of the year. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by EXA. EXA brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/exa. This year's been an interesting year for Valve. They finally found a hardware product category that worked for them. The Steam Deck came out to was announced and then released to much customer approval. There were some day one issues that were solved over the first week, which, honestly, great turnaround time on all of that. And they learned a lot from past hardware and platforms that didn't work so well. For example, the Steam machines, if you were around during those days, it was a partner program. Alienware and a number of other companies all teamed up with Valve to create living room computers that were intended to be used as consoles, essentially, but playing PC games in living room mode. SteamOS was created for that. Created an interface between that and big picture mode for the Steam client that allowed for controller use in a way that was better, because regular Steam is designed for mouse and keyboard. But the Steam machines were an absolute failure. Valve couldn't get it together and actually get the operating system out. At one point, Alienware absolutely gave up and just released them with Windows 8 on them, and an altered UI with a game launcher in it. And in fact, they offered the Steam client in big picture mode on Windows because they just totally gave up on SteamOS. And then they had the controller, the Steam controller, which was loved by nobody because it was weird beyond belief. It had 2 trackpads on it in weird places, and it was like a trackpad, directional pad hybrid thing. Like the whole controller was weird. But they took all of those failures, and they learned from them, and they built the Steam machine, and everybody who's ever touched one is impressed by it. Lots of companies are trying to compete with it now. I get at least one press email a week, it feels like, with some, Chinesium knockoff of the Steam machine, or of the Steam Deck being pitched my direction, which is definitely an indication that Valve has hit something. They've got it. Obviously, new hardware is inevitable. Like Thanos, it is inevitable. It will come. And so they're feeling empowered by this, as you would expect. But they don't expect that a second generation or an upgraded version of the Steam Deck will have any major performance changes, because one of the things that they feel has been a success is that they're all the same. We know what they are. They work the same. That's the reason why consoles work, right? When you compile a game for the maybe not this generation on Xbox. We'll say PlayStation 5. When you compile a game for the PlayStation 5, you know what you're getting. You know the resolution. You know what power is behind it. You know what you can put into a game. And that's what Valve is really focusing on here. What they want to do is they want to fix those amenities. Maybe a Steam Deck Plus. Please don't call it that, Valve. It's a joke. I'm so tired of using a plus. So they want to work on things like battery life, which is not great, especially for a device that's supposed to be portable. So they want to work on that. They want to work on some of the things surrounding it, make the experience better, which I think is a solid idea. You know, we see it. PlayStation does it every generation, right? The PlayStation comes out, and then there's a second generation. What do? They pull the power supply out of the console. They make it a little smaller. They manage to beef it up a little bit. And it's the second generation. With the PS3, there were, I think, 3 where there was Big Bertha, and then the normal one, and I think there was the Pro. It's a long-standing tradition. At some point, there'll be a next generation, but for now, they want to essentially do an enhanced model to fix some of the things that customers have said they could do better. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I think they should maybe give you the possibility of removing the removable Joy-Con controllers, sort of Joy-Con style.
Oh, yeah.
Would be good, because a lot of people, I don't know what the track record is at this point with drift or whatever, but obviously that's been a big concern, is the controllers wearing out, and you can't replace them. So that would that would be a major issue,
because it's more.
So I think
it's more Nintendo Switch Lite than it is Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So being able to change those I think would be good. Maybe definitely improve the battery life. Maybe improve the screen a little bit. Could they get
That's one of the features
Nintendo? Could they get an OLED? Could they get an OLED panel in there? Does it have? I'm not sure. Does it support Wi-Fi 6E?
I don't think so. I think it's 6 flat.
Right. So like that's another thing. A lot of gaming systems now do 6E, particularly because this is a cloud-based system. You know, there's a lot of cloud gaming going on in this. Having 6E would probably be better.
I'll tell you.
So
Steam Deck versus Stream Deck. World's hardest thing to deal with typing. Just putting it out there. Now, I can't tell you how many times I write Stream Deck, which I also have right here. Right? I have a Stream Deck and a Steam Deck upstairs. So confusing.
Yes, and made by completely different companies too.
Yes, with very different purposes.
I'm just really shocked, though, that nobody else has picked up the ball from Valve and tried to run with it. This was a concept that has been around and been in demand for a while. Sort of the Switch form factor gaming PC. Alienware famously showed off its concept UFO at CES 2020 and then never came out with it. And that would have been, I mean, maybe they couldn't have done it as inexpensively as Steam, as Valve, although hard to believe that they couldn't do that. But, this is something I would have expected a larger PC vendor like a Dell to take on, but we haven't. The only other companies that kind of make these are really small Chinese companies that do it much more expensively, and it's not. So I'm just really surprised after the success of this that you don't see others doing it.
Well, here's the thing. We don't know what January is going to hold. Right?
Yeah, this is true. This is true. It's possible somebody else will do it, but so far
Dell might get off their butts and actually take that thing to the next level. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
Razer. I could see Razer jumping in. We know that Logitech has a thing.
Yes, that's an Android-based one, though.
Yeah.
So there's been several attempts to do this sort of thing with Android. Logitech's not the first. I'm trying to
No.
remember some of the other ones that we've seen. I've seen some that I think never came out.
Yeah.
But I don't think like people need to stop trying to make Android gaming happen. Like
Yes.
people want to play Android games on their phone. They just Android is not like people did not. It's just not scaling up. People like for example, Nvidia Shield trying to do like a console to play Android games. It's not working for whatever reason. Not that it couldn't ever work, but the
Yeah.
ecosystem is just not right for it. These games
Yeah.
are made for touchscreen. They're not really made to. They're a lot of them are free to play and try to make you buy
Right.
stuff. There's is the difference between mobile games and like
Now,
console or PC games.
there is there is a market for, Game Pass on mobile. But again, that's small.
Right for
Right.
cloud gaming.
Right.
So
So you could use a
which you could do on
device.
Steam.
Sure, but you could also do it on an
Yeah.
Android device. I've put my hands on a couple of these Android things that do allow you to install the Xbox Game Pass app and then stream to the Android devices with. And I mean that's a pretty solid experience depending on the hardware and what Wi-Fi it has. Which, by the way, the answer to your question is AC, which is a surprise to me.
Wi-Fi
It's not even.
5.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
even six.
So that's so that has to be improved. Like
Yeah.
that's a serious problem. And
I'm
it can't be
shocked
that
by that.
expensive. It can't be
Shocked
that
by that.
expensive to they're probably developing it for a while or whatever, but
Hmm.
every new laptop now has 6. There's no 5s anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they need to I mean, but congratulations to them for really doing something that people have wanted for a long time and making it popular and making it mainstream. I don't think though that it's necessary. And remember, Razer had something many years ago. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was actually a pretty cool idea. It just didn't last very long. Where they had like the two handles on the side. It was much bigger.
Hmm.
It came
Hmm.
out too. I'm
Yep.
trying to remember the name of it. It was like handle style. You'd sort of hold it like this.
Was it the Razer
Um,
Edge? Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Razer
Uh,
Edge, the ultimate Android gaming handheld.
no, it wasn't Android. This was a PC.
Oh, this is a new thing. It says reserve now.
Not. Oh,
Sorry. I apologize.
yeah.
I
Yes.
see there's a reserve now in the top corner.
Another Android though.
Yeah.
See, the problem is that cloud gaming isn't there yet in terms of the ubiquity of the titles that you want. Plus the thing is, with a portable device, you're going to want to take it places, and so you won't be unless it's going to have like 5G and a really good 5G. Like, how are you going to be sure that if you're in the airport or whatever, like you take it to
Yeah.
the park or wherever it is you're taking it, that you can actually do anything? And PC gaming is a good platform. It's a very well established platform with
Right.
lots of great games that play offline. So I don't think that they actually have to constrain the performance. Like, I guess in order to hit their price point, they do, and also to hit their power and heat envelope. But like, if Intel comes out with or AMD come out with, much better, much better integrated graphics for this kind of thing, they should absolutely upgrade it because I mean, every ounce of performance you will be able to use.
Just as a note, there will be a 5G version of the Edge. Because now I'm reading on this thing.
Yeah.
With millimeter, so proper 5G, not the 5G, the UC or whatever, and it is 6E. So all the things that we're saying, except again that it's Android based, but it is very focused. It talks about Game Pass. It's very focused on that experience. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, enhance the Wi-Fi, enhance the screen, possibly offer a 5G UC version. Definitely improve the battery. Those would be the things that I think Valve should be focusing on, based entirely on, my knowledge and experience with the device. Those are the things that I think they should hit hard. What I don't think they should do, however, is go back to the Steam controller. Partially because the first one was so bad that I feared that they would do it again. But partially because I think the name is probably damaged at this point. Maybe come up with a new name for it. SteamCon but it's probably an actual convention with that name, so not that. But come up with a different name for it. Because now we've got a solid reason for it to exist, right? The original controller was kind of intended to be paired with the Steam machines that never really happened, and they were weird. They have learned about, control styles. I described the original controllers as somebody who talked to somebody on the phone who was holding a controller, and based entirely on that phone call went and designed something, but had never actually seen one in person, because it's definitely like a cartoon version of a controller. But now they have figured out controls. The Steam Deck holds solid. The controls are exactly where you expect them to be. They might be able to make a controller, but if they call it like the Steam Controller 2, people are gonna be like, no thank you. But when docked, take your controller, sit back, right? Stay in the ecosystem. You don't have to worry about, I've got my nice expensive Steam Deck and I'm using a $20 Logitech controller or whatever. I'm using an Xbox or a PlayStation controller. I got one from Steam. I got one that's designed to go with this device. I think that would be good. Just please don't use that name. Please don't try and make it a follow-up to the disaster that was the first one. That's my
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think they got to come up with a better brand, right?
Mm-hmm. Steam Deck is a really solid name. Yes, Steam Deck versus Stream Deck is very confusing for those of us who are gamers and in production. But outside of that, it's not that confusing for most people. It's a solid name, and it describes the thing. You know what it is from the name. You kind of know what you're getting into. Have a creative name like that. They didn't call it the Steam Handheld or, whatever, or the Steam Machines, right? Stupid names. Go with this better naming convention. Leave the Steam controller in the past and come into the future with something new. Don't try and pull an OnlyFans. Your brand is Steam controller is damaged. Don't try and go back to it. Go with something new. But I think the idea of a new controller is a solid idea. Most of the time people want the peripherals to match the device, right? And so there you go. There you have it. You could stay in the ecosystem when it's docked. So we will definitely see what comes from that, and what might come from a second generation or an updated version of the first. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. It's been another weird week over at Twitter. That seems like just about any week we would be able to say those words. The chaos of quick decisions and then, oh, maybe I didn't mean that, is really starting to confuse people. This week, the company announced a ban on external social media links, which most people believed was likely because people were saying, hey, so I'm heading off the platform, join me over on Mastodon or join me over on Hive or, whatever, and putting links. And so Elon Musk said, no. And people went, yes. And the company went, okay. So that was reversed in less than 24 hours. It was very strange, but that's something that we've been seeing a lot lately. There was some user accounts that were suspended and then unsuspended in a similar quick fire manner. It's definitely been the promise was that it was going to be less of the Wild West, and I feel like we've gone more Wild West with policies and enforcement. I don't know. But all of this led to an interesting poll the other night, led by our twit-in-chief, asking if he should step down from the CEO role. Now, here's the thing. He's already said it was his plan, that he was going to... He never intended to stay as the day-to-day operations person forever. So he puts out a poll, should I step down? The answer was a very loud yes, which even on our shows, we have essentially said, probably a good idea. Because if you don't know from hour to hour how the platform is going to work, it's very hard to trust it with anything, right?
I mean, it's been chaos. It's been absolute chaos. But listen, he creates the chaos on purpose. I mean, he doesn't really seem to have a governing philosophy except for do what I feel like right now and have chaos. Like before he bought it, it was oh yeah, we want to have free speech. We don't want to ban people who've been banned. But then he unbans a bunch of people that he likes, and then bans a bunch of people who he doesn't like. Then he decides that
people change their display names to his name and suspends them.
Right. I mean, the dude has a very thin skin. Like, this is not a professional. It really makes me wonder how this person has managed to allegedly run a bunch of successful businesses. Seems like maybe he was a figurehead and other people were making the decisions, and somehow he had the money from made the smart investments, or especially since his family was rich and gave him money, that he was able.
PayPal was a big success,
right? So he's kind of but he doesn't seem to have the temperament to be CEO of anything. Like I mean, he can get away with, or sort of get away with this on Twitter. Imagine if he ran SpaceX like this,
right?
Like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't like what you said, so I'm not gonna fire this rocket, or like, right. I mean, this is completely. I mean, the way that he even approaches things is just publicly has been just extremely juvenile and unprofessional. Like, this is a masterclass in how to purposely destroy a business, or how not to run a business. I mean, if he had an objective, it's not other than damaging the brand. I'm not sure what it was, because if it was like making it more of a pantheon of freedom of speech, he didn't do that.
Nope.
If it was trying to make it more of a success as a business, like selling more ads or selling premium services, didn't do that. If it was bringing some type of consistency of leadership or something to it, didn't do that, because he keeps reversing the things that he says he's going to do,
Yep.
right? Uh, I mean, if it was trying to make it more, I don't know, professional, although I don't know if anyone accused Twitter of being unprofessional before, but like, let's see, insulting your current and recently former employees, extremely unprofessional. Even if you
Sure.
think those things, you don't say them publicly, you know,
Keep it in here, bud.
right?
Keep it in here.
Right. Like, like you, even if you think something like you running the, business, right? Like it's just 100% id. The guy
Yeah.
just spent $44 billion to like have a giant like tantrum
Mm-hmm.
for a month and a half. And you know I suppose he could bring in somebody else who was trying to kind of meet some objectives, but the question is, what are those objectives? He still owns the platform, so they're his objectives. So even if someone else is named the CEO, is this someone else going to be behaving in this
Right.
like irrational way, because he still has to report to Musk,
Right.
and there's like no moderating factor here, like a board of directors
Mm-hmm.
or the marketplace, to say like, hey, wait a second, like this is just not a logical way to run any business.
Right. May and maybe that's what happens, right? Or maybe the idea of somebody else being the day-to-day operations is your 3-day waiting period. Right? That's your cool down period between something happening and you making a stupid decision, and you don't have your hands on the controls anymore. You're not in the building. You're not going, all right, you guys switch offices, or whatever weird things are happening in there. He's selling toaster ovens. Doesn't matter. Uh, um, maybe having somebody else. And I do believe that in his head there was a thing. I don't know what that thing was, but there was a thing. And he wasn't expecting all the other things to be as distracting as they've been, because he's got a shiny new crazy town toy and he's playing with it. That's what I see. I see a kid with a new toy playing with it. And the kid
Yes,
doesn't
but he's kind of
the kid doesn't care about the thing, because we know that kids play with toys for a period of time and then they move on. And I
he's sort
really
of
feel
like,
like he's a kid playing with a toy.
yes, but he's like that kid. What was the name of that kid in Toy Story? The one who like melts all his toys?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
The neighbor. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember the name of it, but
Oh.
yeah, he's like that kid.
Mm-hmm.
Stu, what was his name? I forgot. Just like just destroys all of his, just like really violent and destroys all his toys.
Sid.
Yeah, that's Sid. Sid, right? Yeah, he's like Sid.
I got almost all the way
So
through typing in my search and it hit me.
yes, yes. So anyway, yeah, this
Sid
is
Phillips, in fact, I think. Doesn't matter. Continue.
so like, why? What a complete waste of, $44 billion he wasted for this. I mean,
Yeah. And
is he?
and he leveraged his Tesla stock to pull it off. So
Also, he's
this is
damaged
putting
his brand.
true, because I don't know if you saw this, but somebody was talking to Tesla dealerships and salespeople, and they were saying the number of cancellations on pre-orders that have happened since Musk bought Twitter is more than all of the pre-order cancellations since they started working with the company.
Yeah, he's damaged the brand. I mean, he's turned it into a very first of all, he's turned it into a very like, cause, oriented like whole. I mean, he's like, he's turned it into like, for one thing, no matter what he actually believes or believed, like he really put himself out there in terms of having some very polarizing statements, right? And by doing that, like people who were cool with being like associated with the Tesla brand are now like, wait a second, like now Tesla, like especially because he's very closely associated with the brands that he owns.
Yeah.
Like he's very closely associated
Figurehead, like you
with
said.
Tesla. Yeah. It's not like I couldn't tell you who the head of like Ford is right now.
Yeah, I don't know
Or
the
the
current
CEO
head.
of GM. Like, so I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, what does the CEO of GM think? Are they saying something really offensive? Oh, I won't buy that Chevy or whatever. Like, you know,
There's a lot better reasons
it,
not to buy a Chevy than that.
but like people don't. But he's so closely associated with that brand.
Yeah.
He's made it about him, and now that he's kind of tarnished his reputation, not just his reputation as like, oh, I don't agree with something he said or whatever. He seems like unstable and not very smart, and so like people who kind of bought into this genius myth of him as being like a Tony Stark type of guy,
Yeah.
which he actually appeared in Iron Man 2 for that purpose, right?
Yeah.
Now are probably thinking like, wow, this guy really put one over on us because, once we got to get a closer look at him, he really doesn't seem that bright at all.
I feel a little bit like maybe he's the Tony Stark hidden away in the underground lab just doing whatever weird things he wants with no regard for Pepper Potts or anybody around him or the end result of what he's created, Ultron, right? Like I feel like Elon might be that Tony Stark. Not showering
maybe,
for
but
weeks at a time and not telling
maybe, but
anybody that he's poisoning himself through the thing.
I'm just not convinced that he knows as much. Like, having read some stuff about him recently, like apparently he didn't, it's a lot of the things that he didn't actually get, he doesn't actually have as many degrees or whatever as people think or thought.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff that happens at these companies was just sort of him investing in them, not actually like coming up with ideas.
Yeah.
My favorite story, did we talk about this in a previous episode? The story about like the people at SpaceX who had set up like all kinds of fake displays for him when he comes into the office.
No.
So there was a wonderful, I think this was a Twitter thread, which I'm sure if he saw now, he would probably purge. Someone who said they had worked
Or suspend the
like,
account.
yes, worked as an intern at SpaceX at one time, and everybody at SpaceX was like, "Hey, we know who this guy is. We know that we've got to like put on a show for him when he comes into the office. He wants to see people working what he thinks working hard looks like."
Yeah.
So so what they would do is there was like one guy there who was a programmer, and he had like a whole bunch of screens, kind of like me, and on one screen he set up an animation that looked kind of like the Matrix thing where like in the Matrix where they have all that text scrolling by or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he set it up, it was just a fake animation, but like it impressed Elon Musk because he was walking by and he saw that. Or another time, like all of the all he wanted to see people working late, so all of the like engineers or whoever stayed late at their desk and played like some MMO game together.
Sure.
But he saw them all sitting there, so he thought they were working or whatever.
Great solution to a stupid problem.
And apparently, at all of the levels of the company, people understood this. It was like, hey, the boss is coming. We've got to put on a show. And
okay.
I have worked with people. I have worked with people like that before, and I get it.
I mean, not to that level, but yes.
And I get it. Like, I worked at a place once where there were people who were supposed to be doing reviews of video games, but the CEO or whatever would come around and was angry if he saw them playing video games at their desk because people can't see you playing a game. Like, it was literally their job to play games.
Yeah.
But they had to like be ashamed of their job. And so like they'd have to go hide in a closet basically to test video games during the workday. Like, so because they were like, well, what if other people see you playing video games? That seems like you're not working. So like, again, like, I mean, that's a lot of what goes on too with it. Like, oh, we want to see people in the office not working remotely because then we know they're working. Like, these are very very like out of touch kind of ways of managing. And he is doing them. So
I love the idea of the Matrix screen. That amuses me to no end. I appreciate that story. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, yeah, I totally understand why they would do that. And yeah, it's hilarious to think about.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, we don't know what the future holds. In fact, everything could have changed while we've been on the air tonight. Who knows? He may have landed a rocket at HQ. There's no telling. But as it continues to get weirder or calmer, depending on what happens with the results of this Twitter poll, we will unfortunately keep you posted. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. We all know that you get free shipping on millions of products with Amazon Prime, but you get a whole lot more. Like free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, plus a whole lot more. We've got links to all of these features and some of our favorites, plus a 30-day free trial, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. The last couple of years have been interesting for AI-generated content. In particular, AI-generated imagery. I'm not going to use the word art for a particular reason. AI-generated imagery has been controversial in the early days, and by that I mean 6 months ago. Most people were generally ignoring it. It was a toy. I definitely used that one that everybody was using to create, aliens at Thanksgiving because the concept was funny to me. And that was about the extent of that. But just over the last couple of months, and in particular over the last couple of weeks, what it has been able to create has gotten significantly more advanced. And that has created some problems. In particular, it has created some ethical and legal ramifications. The legal issue is, what is being used to train these systems? Oftentimes, what happens is a Google image search is performed. Those images are all downloaded, pulled in, used to train the AI with no regard for copyright or IP protection. And artists have taken notice, particularly when the imagery that comes out of these systems looks very similar to either their style or nearly art that they have created themselves. So the question has come up, what is the copyright and IP protection involved in a computer essentially scraping the internet and taking images that are available on Google Image Search or on an art portfolio site to train the AI? Generally, the belief, especially among artists, is no. You may not do that. I did not give you permission for that usage. Search results do not change the copyright intent or the copyright licensing, and so no. Many of these systems go and continue to do it anyway. Some, one whose name has slipped my mind, Stability AI, is allowing artists to opt out. But you have to know as an artist that this thing exists. You have to then go to a different website and see if your imagery has been used to train the AI, and then you have to go actively opt out of that usage. Now, that's not going to be legally protected, I guarantee it. When these lawsuits get started, and they will, that's not going to be protected. On the other side is the ethical ramifications of claiming the output of these systems as your own. Several of the comic book publishers have come out and said, if you submit something that has come out of one of these AI systems, you will be blacklisted from our publication permanently, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that everybody else knows too. Because artists are taking this seriously, partially because of the legal and partially because of the ethical ramifications here. It's definitely an interesting thing that's going on. What is your take on this?
It's funny, but it seems like we've seen an explosion of AI, or at least publicly available AI content creation tools in the last month. Yes. Because ChatGPT has become a really big thing in the world of text. And a very interesting topic that we could have just as easily talked about in the same vein is I was reading a lot the last few days about teachers that are very concerned about you wouldn't call it would you call it plagiarism? About people using ChatGPT to create their school paper, create their school essays. And I've seen different perspectives on this. One was from a high school English teacher who said, this is so good now that kids don't need to learn to write essays anymore. And I find that very offensive. Then I saw one from a college philosophy professor who said something like, we need to be really careful to stop this. And there is a tool that the ChatGPT people make that helps you detect ChatGPT text, but it's only 99% accurate.
Right.
And school, college, policies are not updated to deal with this in the same way that they discipline plagiarism.
Right. Is this considered cheating? Right? And that's exactly the same thing we're looking at here, right? Several of the comic book publishers are considering it cheating and saying, we will blacklist you from ever publishing with us. Your name will be on a list. You will never be able to publish anything with us again. That's it. You'll be done. But the schools for written stuff, their policies probably don't, based on the way they're written, they're probably not up to date on whether or not this would be cheating one way or another. It's probably a weird vagary.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing that's kind of messed up though. The comic artists obviously have a strong interest in not having AI take over their job. By the way, as a professional writer, I have a very strong interest in having AI not do my job either.
Right.
We don't want, but I think our big worry should not be what other comic creators or other writers think of people who use AI, of individuals who use AI. We should be worried about companies using AI to replace these, to
Mm-hmm.
replace humans. And it is quite conceivable. I know there's already AIs that write news. They write
Mm-hmm.
news stories. There's already AIs that do some amount of writing. So, like, yeah, I could totally see this happening. On the other hand, like, what an AI cannot do is an AI can do research to a point, but
Mm-hmm.
it can't it can't have experiences,
Right.
right?
It
So
could not
unless
write.
it's
It could not write about its experience trying to install 4 monitors of
right,
varying
exactly.
models.
Right, because it didn't do that, right?
Right.
It could go out and it could try to fake it from reading other people who have done it, but at some point someone has to actually try to put 4 monitors in,
Right.
or someone has to actually sit and type on this keyboard to write a review of it,
Mm-hmm.
or like to test it. Like, so experiences, or if you're going out and you're doing journalism and you're interviewing people, someone's got to actually conduct an interview. It's not an AI. So, like,
Yeah.
there's like anything though that is not original, like, oh, I'm just kind of regurgitating something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, an AI could probably do, and possibly do better than possibly do as well as a person, at least,
Sure.
if not now, then soon. So that it is kind of scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
um as far as it
I,
comes
I'll
to
tell you,
art, like,
I've been
yeah,
I've been experimenting with a lot of AIs, um,
man,
text generation, visual generation, audio generation. Um, the text generation is interesting. Um, they are really good at misattributing quotes, which which is still obviously still going to be a huge problem for trying to do news stuff. But you're right, they can research a topic that's not bleeding edge, um, and write decently. You still need somebody to clean it up because it definitely, everyone I've touched definitely sounds like a computer wrote it. Right? You read it and it's a little chunky. It's a little, sometimes a little too formal for a very soft topic. Things like that. Um, but you're right. It's if text generation can improve as quickly as this image generation has over the last 6 months, it could be a challenge.
yeah, no, I mean, no question about it. I mean, I also do worry about uh I do worry about that. I mean, I guess the question is, you know when you're talking about creative work, do people matter? Like, and I
Right.
mean, like, does the authenticity of having it from a real person matter?
Right.
Right, like, one thing to note, by the way, is that one thing that Google does right now in terms of its algorithm for finding text content is it
Mm-hmm.
has a principle called EAT: expertise, authority, and trust.
Nom nom.
And the Google God is, we don't know that the Google God always follows through with what the Google God says,
Right.
but the Google God says that, like, we're going to judge you based on your, like, the author matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm looking at what this author is known for doing, how long they've done it, like, et cetera, et cetera. So an AI doesn't have a reputation. Now, maybe that changes in the future, uh, but an AI doesn't. Maybe that AI is Google in the future. Maybe Google's just like, I'm just going to write my own news now. I don't know, but um, but as far as we know, like, people like people you know want authority in some respect. Like, they
Yeah.
want expertise, they want authority. So I'm not sure that they will always get that from, some things may be acceptable the AI way, including in terms of art. But I can understand why artists who did the real work don't want the AI to profit off of their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it also brings us to the question of what is art, right? Is something created by a computer art? Or does it require that authenticity? Does it require showing something from the heart to be considered art as opposed to just imagery? Which is the reason why I've been using the term AI generated imagery. Because I'm still debating personally on where my definition falls.
I mean, art is art is, in the eye of the beholder. So I guess if I think that it's art, then it's art. But I mean, people there are people who would say that Jackson Pollock's are not art because it's just a splatter. But then other people look at it and see something of great meaning. So like,
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say, right?
Sure.
I mean, I think it's
Duct
obviously
taping a banana to the
eye of
wall.
beholder.
Right? Is that art? Which was
If
the
it's
debate,
in a museum.
Which was the debate? What, in 2019? Was that when that happened? Modern art has constantly come under that same conversation of what is art? Is duct taping a banana to a wall art? And is something created by a computer after we're ingesting and then kind of regurgitating a sampling of other things, is it art? Who knows? It's definitely going to keep philosophers busy. I suspect for a generation.
Yep. No question.
I also think it's going to keep I think it's going to keep lawyers busy. Did you say you had a question, or that was a good question?
Yeah, it's a good question as to whether, well, I mean, there's going to be some wonderful lawsuits.
Yeah, for sure. And they will be fascinating to follow. The monkey selfie was a fascinating thing to follow. Who was the owner of the photo? All of this is going to be an equally interesting, case law to keep track of over the next couple years, because we're just getting started in this. This is just the beginning, and I guarantee it's going to get way more interesting very quickly. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We always appreciate it. I saw quite a few people watching live tonight. We always appreciate that. If you didn't, would like to in the future, normally Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. Of course, this is the end of the year. We will be preparing for CES at the beginning of next year. So we've got 2 holidays falling on the next 2 Sundays, one of which will be a travel day for us. So we will be tearing this studio apart. So this is our last show of the year. But the PLUGHITZ and TPN team will be in Las Vegas starting on January 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th for CES 2023. We've got a lot of content coming. It's going to be a really, really good show and a big production this year. We're really excited about it, so you'll definitely want to check that out. And I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back in the new year. Ciao.
Yeah.